if you're going to break it into two really essential things you've got to get a grasp on. One is directing the camera, the other is directing the actors. What I want to tell you is that this is what you get told at film school because that's how shots break down when you look at them in the edit. The thing that I discovered when I started directing television is that television isn't actually shot like that. Don't get me wrong, there are mid-shots, there are that kind of stuff, but that basically what you're always looking for is a master shots to a scene. And so the classic kind of master shot that you get is the most basic kind of thing would be if me and, what's your name? If me and Harriet are standing here having a conversation, the master shot might be just, if you want to be quite boring, is a really, really static shot of the two of us talking. And then we might also do a close-up and a close-up, because and if you guys understand this, then great, but I feel like that what happens for people is that they tend to think shot by shot by shot by shot, when actually what actors want to do is perform the scene. They don't think about it like, oh, I'm gonna be seen in this little close-up, and then I'm gonna be seen in this wide shot, and I'm gonna whatever. And don't get me wrong, professional actors often want to know what kind of shot they are in, because they know to be bigger or smaller in the performance based on what it is. Of course, most of them are so experienced that they can tell by the position of the camera. But you know, if you're doing a shot that's like a track in or a track out, I'll quite regularly explain to the actors what shots we're doing or whatever. But actors want to run the entire scene every time. And the reason why is because it gives a continuity and a flow of performance. And so when you shoot, you don't just shoot this line in close-up, then that line in close-up, then this line in close-up. You run shots for the entire length of the scene, unless there's some reason to do like a little special shot. And actually quite a lot of TV and film is about finding the master, and nearly always the master is a moving master. So it's about choreographing the actors around the cameras. I really encourage you as a director to not think little piece by little piece by little piece. Like, do not think about it like it's on this list. You need to know the names of those shots. You have to understand in your mind what you're trying to achieve. But actually when you shoot it, this shot, this master shot we're describing, could have many sizes in it. It could start as quite a wide shot. It could creep up on us. It could get closer. It could actually finally become a mid shot of you, depending on what lens we've got on the camera, how far we're moving, all of that sort of stuff. So many different size shots are done in the same master. Sometimes when you're directing in TV, I mean, especially in TV, because you have many, many scenes to get in the day, and you have to get the day. So you might even do the same master twice with two different lenses on. And by two different lenses, I mean a wider lens and a closer lens, because what we might want is something where we get your two shot, but I also want to be able to get you in a nice close-up, right? So this is called coverage. So when you plan, like, you can imagine that when you are storyboarding something, like using these shots, you can end up with 15, 16 shots. But actually your coverage for a scene, like depending on how many people are in it, is probably going to be, in TV, it's often only 3 or 4 shots that you get. Because 3 or 4 shots would take you nearly 2 hours. So for me, when I started directing TV and I realized that I had to get quite a lot of shots quite quickly, the thing that I found the most useful was to plan the action from above. I stopped storyboarding. In fact, I never, ever, ever storyboard unless I'm doing a sequence that's purely visual. So if it involves actors, I go from above. If it's a visual sequence or an action sequence, then you do need to storyboard, because obviously you're not really going to stage a car accident. It's going to be told in a series of shots where it doesn't actually really happen. Or if it does happen, there's going to be a stunt element involved, and so you're not going to see it. How might you decide what your coverage is going to be? One of the things that's really important to remember is point of view, point of view, point of view. It's absolutely it is what kind of defines the directing of camera, because you are controlling what the viewer sees. So whose point of view are we seeing the world through? Are we seeing only what they can see? If you, like, this short film is very much told from that little boy's point of view. Most short films, if you look at them, are very strongly point of view based, and they're always one character. That's not so true in television. In television drama especially, there's usually multiple points of view because the show goes day in, day out, day in and day out, and if you followed one character relentlessly, the actor would have to be in every scene and they would be dead after 2 months. Camera movement. You have to know what kind of show it is. So, and what you're wanting to achieve with the movement. So a good example would be, okay, so movement can basically be motivated by action. So us walking along, so the camera's going to move because we're walking along, kind of thing, right? It can be motivated by emotion, and you see that, you know, it's like where the character's like on the stand and they're like pleading for their life, and the camera just keeps creeping in. The Americans love that shot, you know, and there's the movement that I described in the Jaws thing, which is a really lovely version that Spielberg has done, which is designed to make you feel like his whole world kind of wobbles. Like, why are you doing the movement? Is it action-based? Is it motivated by the action of the characters? Is it motivated by the emotion, right? And then there's stylistic movement, and some shows have a strong stylistic element in that it universally keeps a kind of movement in it. So for example, you might decide, like you get shows that are completely shot on Steadicam, shows that are completely shot on handheld. I can't tell you how ludicrously useful it is to have some skills directing actors, because it is really how the set goes well. Like if the actors are liking you, no one will ever fire you. There's a few things that you can do that will really, really, really piss actors off. Number one, telling them how to say the line. Like going, it's not Bob, get the coffee. It's Bob, get the coffee, right? It is an absolutely certain way to have a full-on actor mutiny on your hands. The only people that won't mutiny when you do that are children and inexperienced teenagers, but you'll get a lousy performance from them. And the reason it really pisses actors off is because, one, it implies that you're a better actor than them. So somehow, you know, blah, blah. And two, the actor then just becomes a mimic for that line, and they don't want to mimic the line, because what makes a really good performance is an underlying kind of emotional understanding of what is going on in the scene. So you need to, like, one of the reasons to really understand how they work is because if you want to change how they're saying a line, you have to somehow achieve that by giving them a different motivation. So what actors usually are looking for is a kind of underlying verb that that is going to govern each section of the piece. So for example, you could say to a character, you know, it's fine to say to an actor, look, I don't want you to say that, you know, that doesn't feel right to me, you know, Bob, go get the coffee. That doesn't feel right to me. I really, really, really want you to flirt with him, right? You're giving the actor like an action verb that they can do underneath it, right? And they could say to you, I don't understand why I'd flirt with him, and then you can discuss that. But it's not the same as mimicking the line and going like, Bob, can you go get the coffee? Do you understand what I'm saying? That is the way to direct actors, is to get in that underlying thing. There's actually a very good book by a woman called Judith Weston called On Directing, which goes through a lot of like common director techniques for speaking to actors. It is quite useful. The other thing that is quite useful, so you can give them a verb. The other thing that you can do is you can give them a fact. So you can just go up to them and go, you're trying to get him to fall in love with you, right? Like it's a fact that's in the script, you know, you're in love with him, or you pashed last night at the movies. You can just remind them of something that is actually a fact. That never annoys an actor, and they always go, yeah, you're right. What other things do actors really hate? They really hate the mimicking thing. The other thing they really hate is this, and it's a big mistake, is like, can you be more funny? Or can you be better? Or can you be sexy? Or that just wasn't right, I don't really know why. Or, you know, like one of the things that you're paid to do, the main things you're paid to do as a director is to make a decision. That's your job. And 9 times out of 10, you have some doubt. You're just like, But your job is to make that decision. And so you've got to prepare enough that you feel like you can. And sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. Sometimes you go back to the footage and you go, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. But what everyone wants from the director is a person who is capable of leading a group of people. If I turn up and I'm nervous and I'm really anxious and I'm quite low energy, I will get a completely different performance than if I turn up in another state. That's true. Like if I come in with especially imagine a group of teenagers who are nervous about acting. If I come in and I'm like, right, this is what we're doing, and I've got heaps and heaps of energy, what you'll notice is that they take it and they take it into their performance. If I want those teenagers to cry and do a really slow still scene, if I am really quiet and I'm really still, it will just start to affect them. So there's an element of directing that is about actually directing yourself. My biggest tip is this: work on yourself, because I know lots of people that have really good ideas for shots, and I know I've taught lots of students that have really good ideas for things and whatever, but in the end, the real people who really go on to work professionally as directors are people that can carry a whole crew of people with them.